Hey, this is Mike,
This is Charles Woods.
and we're here once again. You're watching Reelblack TV, and we're joining you for a very special video edition of the Reelblack podcast. And the reason we're able to do that is because Charles is here today in Philadelphia. A very special occasion. Let folks know what brought you down this week.
Well, once again, this brother has treated me royally. I mean, we had a day yesterday. We saw something quite historic. A new Jack, Ta-Nehisi Coates,
Hmm.
and later on, to cap it off, Baba Dick.
And it was great because we had a lot of the Real Black team came out. A lot of our Real Black meetup group were there, and he was on fire. I mean, with 2 weeks from the election, as we speak, he had a lot to say about. He said he wasn't going to take sides, but
No, he's not taking sides, and quite a few times, he said something that reminded me of the comment I made on the technology of Trump, where he said, "Oh, you got all these stupid ends talking about the lesser of two evils. They're both the same." He said he knows different people, and they both have the same speechwriter, Hillary and Clinton.
yeah, he said
Hillary and
Hillary
Trump.
and Trump are cousins, and it's the evil of two evils, But it's really white folks' business. So, I don't know, but the great thing about last night was we got to present Brother Gregory with one of a kind painting that we had commissioned of him, which is by Stacy Flygirl Wilson. So thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Touré, for hosting Dick Gregory, a sold out show here in Philadelphia, and he said he's going to come back. So. And then also, I guess before we move on to the thing, so also as a surprise for you guys, guess what? There's more Dick Gregory videos coming your way in November. So I know that we didn't get the whole hour and a half from before cut, but what we're going to do, we were holding on to some other information that was less time specific for just this period in the month. So Dick Gregory is talking about prayer, meditation, fasting, different political issues. There's much more Dick Gregory coming your way. So make sure that you check in with us from time to time. So
Let me just say, in the interest of you know, um, many people tune in to hear Dick Gregory speak on race from his own unique perspective. But I think a lot of people are just fascinated with this gentleman's 84 years old. I took a picture next to him, and I'm younger than he is, and he looks much better than me. Now, I know people say black don't crack. I understand that. But he looks great. He's got his faculties. I know I'm losing mine, but I would be very much interested in hearing what his secret
yeah. So drink lots of water. That's the first thing.
is.
And
That's one of the things he made sure to say in closing.
mhm. Yeah, that's one of the keys. So moving on, I know we had some comments from the viewers that you wanted to address. I mean, one of the most popular thing that we've done together recently is the stuff on Birth of a Nation, and we posted a video about a week before it came out, a couple of days before it came out, giving our reaction, our immediate reaction to the film at the time. But we just wanted to take a few minutes to clarify some things from that thing and address some of the comments from that video.
Well, one thing that's different about the last time I was here, I was pressed for time, and my mind was here, and I was hoping I wouldn't miss that bus. Not to make any excuses, but um, there's some things in looking at the last video we did where touched on Nate Parker's The Birth of a Nation.
Mm-hmm.
I went into circumscribed historicity, and I had asked Mike to give me an opportunity in this setting to just, first of all, say, anytime I say something, and I kind of touched upon this when I went after Brother Giuliani, my analysis to make an analysis, it's looking at things. I have looked at a lot of film, watched a lot of film, and if I had any issues with Birth of a Nation, it was putting it in the context of what we have gotten cinematically in terms of slave films. And I said that for me, been there, done that. But if anyone looks at what I said in that whole conversation,
Yeah, we did 40 minutes on that one. Yeah.
if because we look at the analysis of the viewing, a lot of people, they tune in, they listen, not to the whole thing, and in some of the commentary, a lot of people say, "Well, I know Charles Woods, I know his commentary. He looks like," some people say, "He looks like he's being a little evasive." First of all, if anyone got that, it's because I didn't want to do or say anything that was going to hurt the box office.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm all about supporting our conscious brothers and sisters of conscience who are putting films out there that show us in a positive light. That film I felt was very well done, and I said so. But when I spoke about it in the context of what I call circumscribed historicity, it's because we can't lose sight of the fact that we're in a dominant white culture. Cinema is an art form, an aesthetic that for the most part is going to reflect the interests, the safety, the perpetuation, the status quo of the dominant culture.
Right, which is something that is a recurring theme in all of your mini lectures, and certainly when you reach a certain number of viewers, a lot of those folks aren't necessarily exposed to your previous comments about black film. I mean, so at this point I would say, like, definitely folks, if they have not seen it already, go and look at the piece on slave rebellion in the movies, and also what blaxploitation could have been, because I think one of the things that we're trying to illuminate in the process of doing these videos is that, yes, uniformly, film, when looked at through the gaze of as a propagandic tool, just the sheer nature of film and the way narrative stories are told in American film, it's always, something starts from here, there's some unsteadiness, and then there's a resolution, which usually is a return back to normal. So, and then when you're talking about black identity in film, in terms of representation, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that the majority of black images are not controlled by black authorship. So this was a case with Birth of a Nation where I think a lot of people's anticipation was quite high because it was something that we had long awaited, and it was a black author, it was a writer, but I think, well, let's re-examine the criticism, and then let's look into illuminating some of, now that more people have had a chance to see the film, illuminating some of the details, some of the layers, some of the nuances, and address some of the comments that we may have gotten along the way.
Well, first of all, it was quite obvious that those who criticize me and call me a coon and the light-skinned brother doesn't know what he's talking about, or if he wants a better film, then make your own damn film, you know what I mean? But here's the thing. There's technology in the Birth of a Nation. There's even black technology as a consequence of the fact that Nate Parker brought his consciousness to the film. And there are a lot of things, as I said in the first commentary, I saw images of Christ, Emmett Till. I saw the fact that here's a black man who didn't like what happened to his black woman and said enough's enough. But we also saw in that film the importance of knowing how to read. And as a consequence of knowing how to read, you learn to read and then you read to learn. He took this book, and by virtue of knowing how to read, he's not just limited now to those passages which have been used to contain him and other slaves. Now he's seeing the other passages in the Bible that speak to revolution and the fact that there is a time, there is a place where if you are not getting justice, then you have to go out and get it. Redress, rebellion, defiance. And it will be okay because, as I said before, the Bible, like any other book, and let's just focus on the Bible because in some of the comments, we have a number of people who are quite religious, and I respect that. As far as the Bible is concerned, like any other book, it can be used in the true sense of propaganda. Propaganda is not negative or positive. Propaganda is how you use it offensively to promote your cause or to suppress those who are opponents of yours. So you can take the Bible, and the Bible, the same book, is used by whites as a supporting document, a source to be anti-black. And that same Bible is used by others as a source to be anti-white. Okay? What you read into something is what you read out of it. For those who talk about the Bible and they say it in the way that in its true sense of what it should be for humanity as a source of good, where people can go to that Bible and learn how to love your fellow man and to see all men and women as equal in the passage that says we are all of one blood, not to go to the Bible to say that the black man is the curse of Ham or that the white man is a mutation and he's the devil. You follow? So
there's Christianity that's represented in Birth of a Nation, but also I got a sense that there's some African spirituality things. I mean, clearly some of the images and his connection to Africa is one of the things that gives Nat his power in this film.
Well, this is why I wanted to go further and say,
okay,
there are a number of people, the people I was raised under, to learn about history, they don't accept the Bible. Because the question is, where did the African get his Bible? Or where did the African get his Quran? And the people I sat under, they said those two books were given to him by his slave masters. You didn't have any Africans coming over here reading the Bible or the Quran, But if they learn, because you can go Song of Freedom with Paul Robeson. No, Sanders of the River. There's a part in Sanders of the River where he says the true religion is Muslim religion. Okay, because they were the Africans were raised under that religion. Over here, the slaves were raised under Christianity, and Christianity was one way that those who believed in civilizing the Native Americans and the African slaves, the only way you could first civilize them and make them somewhat human, they had to be Christianized. They had to be baptized. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's one of the crimes that that Nat commits in the film, baptizing the drunkard.
Well, yeah, that's what's interesting about that scene. Um, how dare a black man do that? A similar scene happened in Oxbow Incident, where Lee Whipper's character, he's a preacher. They said, "Come on, Sparks, come along. We going for a hanging." And usually, what they want to do with the black characters is show them as being spiritual. How could they not be spiritual if they were raised on the Bible? You follow? But the thing is, when he wanted to pray for the intended victims who were going to be lynched, these white victims, one of the people said, "I want him praying over me." And the technology is the one person, the one white person that he is allowed to pray over. Guess which one is it? Which white person it is? It's a white person who didn't have all of his senses. That's the technology.
Right. So there's always a scale of power within this. I mean, and that speaks to a lot of what Ta-Nehisi was speaking on in terms of, and you speak on as well, race being a social construct. It's like an imaginary line that's drawn that we all buy into, and either, but it's all used in terms of a form of control.
Well, here's what's let me make it as Brother Malcolm used to, let me make it clear,
Make it plain.
Okay, make it plain. One of the comments some time ago, it may not have been addressed in the Birth of a Nation setting, but a lot of the subscribers, they are on your channel for what reason?
Well, I mean, they gravitate for Black consciousness information, and Paul Mooney and Dick Gregory are clearly our top views. So
right. So I know Paul. Spoken to him a long time. We've argued and debated. I'm not going to go into the whiteness in his background, okay? And the whole thing is, there are a whole lot of people that they have to realize that I don't care how black they are, they got some white in them. And as I was telling Conspiracy Brother the other day, the color of your skin, there's a lot of reasons for that. But being light-skinned, there's some people who call themselves nationalists, black nationalists. They'll accept that blackness at a particular point in time, and then at other times, when you say something they don't like, then they want to attack you for it. You know what I'm saying? This color, getting to the idea of race being a construct, there are a number of people, black or white, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to accept it.
Yeah, there's a level of judging, and we're going to talk about that in a future mini lecture in terms of colorism. But yeah, it's ironic. I mean, I think information, regardless of who's giving you the information, now you can question your sources, but and I encourage everybody, even what you're saying, like research it, like look up Oxbow Incident, look up these movies, make every effort to see them for yourself, not just look at the Cliff Notes encapsulation or his interpretation of things. But yeah, I mean, so you say, so certain information isn't valid. I mean, a lot of people on Facebook, they're talking about Colin Kaepernick. It's like, well, he's standing up for Black Lives Matter. It's like, well, he's got white adopted parents, So I mean, does that disqualify him for standing up for social justice or his identity? I don't know. So you caught a little bit of the heat too.
Does it disqualify? Let me just say right quick. We know about Rush Limbaugh. This racist SOB. Many of the people watching this, they may not have ever heard of Bob Grant.
Mm-hmm.
But I was listening to Bob Grant one night, and he said something. He said, you know, it's funny how black people always want to talk about, well, he was a black man, you know, because we went through in an attempt to counter all of the what black folk felt was BS coming out of a Eurocentric perspective. We had the Afrocentric perspective. They said, yeah, they want to talk about people like John Mosslinger, Frederick Douglass, a lot of even Alexandra Dumas, right? And this whole one drop, okay, one drop, that definition of what makes you black, that one drop rule, where did we get it from? The white man,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're saying one drop makes you black, Bob Grant is saying, is one drop more than, let's say, if it takes 8 drops to make you complete? Does one drop make you more black than 7/8 makes you white?
No.
Walter White, if he didn't say he was black, you couldn't tell he was a black man. And he used his light skin to infiltrate how they were lynching black men. He infiltrated the KKK, right? But there's some people that say they don't want to even listen. They don't even want to listen to what Tim Wise has to say because he's a white man, right?
Yeah.
So and then there's some people, they couldn't accept a black woman being loved by a black man because when I said I loved the film Beyond the Lights,
yeah.
well, I can't really deal with that film because it's not really a black girl. She's a light-skinned girl.
Yeah, so I mean, we have to get past the colorism. So I did want you to break down some of the technology that you saw in Birth of a Nation. But I mean, for people that didn't see the previous clip, can you encapsulate basically your point of view, just a refresher on what you were saying in terms of the circumscribed historicity that you saw in the film, and one of the reluctances. I think it validated your expectation. Why Birth of a Nation, coming as an American film, was not necessarily going to, and the story it chose to tell was not necessarily going to be the revolutionary film that we were anticipating.
Yeah, but all I'm going to say in a nutshell is this, and I would direct people to listen to what David Oyelowo has to say about having firsthand experience in the film industry, knowing how on the page, the written page, how films he's worked in its original iteration, it started out as being pro-white, where the character was basically going to be white.
Yeah, David Oyelowo is the star of Selma. He played Martin Luther King. He's in one of our favorite movies of the year, Queen of Katwe, and he also, you know, he has a lot of firsthand knowledge, in terms of how films change from the time the scripts are written to how they end up on screen, and yeah.
So basically, when you hear what he's saying, and you juxtapose it to my concept of circumscribed historicity, what it basically is saying that the subject matter is got to be something that is conducive, acceptable, and non-subversive or countercultural, and it fits in with what the dominant culture wants to see, where they don't find anything in it that can cause the status quo to be upset. That's natural. And the fact that when we get motion pictures are going to reflect those people who produce it. This is a dominant white society, so the films that are going to come out of this society are going to reflect the interests of the dominant culture.
Right, and film, and this David Oyelowo speech, by the way, is available online. It's a keynote address that he made at the BFI Institute. So we'll leave the link in the comment section. But yeah, and it's also film the way it's made here in the United States is very capitalistic. So it also the golden rule applies. He who has the gold makes the rules. So even if a film success. I mean, if we're, and I'll just go this way, and then I'll let you finish. Like, if you're talking about the box office for some of these movies, I mean, I asked Dick Gregory, he says they can make up these numbers. It doesn't really matter, So when we had Conspiracy Brother on talking about the box office for Birth of a Nation, it was just a way of reporting the figures. In an amusing way. It wasn't necessarily saying this movie is a flop or it's a failure or whatever. Most movies, white or black, don't make all their money back in theatrical. There's 5 flops for every $1 billion grosser or $100 million grosser. But also a lot of the factor. Not only is it the audience has to support the films, but also how are the films marketed? How much money is spent to market the film. A lot of times they have to spend half as, if the movie costs $100 million, often they'll spend up to $50 million, if not more, to get the word out about the film. And clearly with Birth of a Nation, with the controversy that Brother Nate chose not to directly address at the time that the film was being released, it was very clear that that some of the things were pulled back in terms of they were unable to do all the things that they wanted to do to promote the film, and that certainly that was probably the key effect on why that movie underperformed. But so back to circumscribed historicity.
Well, circumscribed historicity simply means that you're going to get, for the most part, biopics where they can take a historical figure or a historical incident, and they'll take it because they can show a white man. We can put a white man in there. So you have Armistead, where you have John Adams helping to get Sinkay and the brothers free. Free State of Jones. You got the white savior. You take Lincoln. You got Abraham Lincoln. Oh, we love Lincoln. He freed the slaves, Gettysburg Address and Emancipation Proclamation, right? And also the fact that if we have a Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, they're great. But for example, you take Malcolm X, and that's powerful scene, and Spike Lee did where they said this brother's got too much power. But the reason why we can get, as I said, the reason why we can get Malcolm X more recently, when James Baldwin wanted to do him years ago, the reason why we'll get him at all is because they can show him saying he didn't see all white people as the devil. He learned that was a lie. And even one of the commenters said, well,
what American story of a black leader exists where he's not killed off or discredited or whatever? So you're grasping at straws if you're expecting any a film about a black American hero to have any kind of revolutionary ending.
And what I was saying is, when you're going to get those kind of films, they're not going to take place in America. And correction, but said Sankofa was an example, and then we were both not
wrong about
Sankofa.
That was set in the West Indies.
West Indies.
It was filmed in Virginia, but it was shot in the West Indies.
And that goes to the point I want to make. It's not taking place here. The Caribbean, the film Caribbean with John Payne, Lydia Bailey, with Dale Robertson. Now, they're showing blacks rebelling, but they also use the technology. If you watch the film, okay, great, the blacks are rebelling, but what do they put in these films? The white hero, the white validator. If you watch a film like Silverado with Danny Glover, well, he's a bad brother. He got this rifle. He learned how to, work that rifle.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's going to go up against the white guys,
Mm-hmm.
he's got to have the white boys
Mm-hmm.
validating that, supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the balance. That's part of the game. That's part of the
Yeah,
technology.
so I don't know if you, I think you're the one that pointed me out to this was the unsung Tim Reed. Did you watch that, right?
Yes.
Where he had an opportunity to write an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati, and in it he was confronting a bigot in a bar, and and in his script he was going to punch the bigot in the face, white guy in the face. So, can you share what the compromise was? The network went crazy. No, you can't show that 1979 on network television. So,
And I covered this.
mm-hmm.
I covered this in The Slap. The
Mm-hmm.
Slap heard round the world.
Mm-hmm.
With Sidney in a mainstream film. That film was not a blaxploitation film. That was a mainstream film.
Mm-hmm.
And they had issues about, will they allow this black man to slap this white man back? Because it's an anomaly. It's not a conventional scene where you're having black defiance, black rebellion, black redress.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of the black guy just hitting the white guy, I think you're going to have the black guy and some white guy comes and hits him also. Is that what happened?
Yeah, they both hit him simultaneously.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now remember when we did the thing with when we talked about the outcasts.
Mm-hmm.
What's the term I taught you about when you had, let's say, Eddie Murphy and 48 Hours? Mm-hmm. When you had the Defiant Ones where Sidney and Tony Curtis are fighting?
Mm-hmm.
You have a point in time that's reached where we've gone past the point where they didn't give a damn
Mm-hmm.
about black fragility.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was always this concession to the so-called Southern box office.
Mm-hmm.
But then they reached the point where, well, we got to show the black guy a little respect. So rather than have the black man beat the white man or the white man continuously beat the black man, you have what I call fighters, interrupters.
Yeah, and you'll see that. I mean, the Philadelphia Film Festival is going on right now. I can't wait for you to see the James Baldwin documentary because there's a little segment in there about the Defiant Ones, which is based on Baldwin's criticism at the time. But so there's technology. Let's go through the list in Birth of a Nation of some of the tricks, and then but I don't want to end this segment without talking about the brilliant things that exist in this film as well, because I don't want people to go away thinking that this movie isn't brilliant, but it's important to make it clear that in America, in a film that's going to be marketed widely, there's certain things that just as much as, and we had some comments saying, I wish it was more blood, I wish it was more this, so I think
Say that again.
There's some people. Well, clearly the actual rebellion, there were a lot more lives lost in the film, and then clearly, I don't think there was a moment in the original Nat Turner book that was written where after he killed his slave master, he took 3 minutes to go vomit. So I'm not sure. I think it was, and then also what triggers the rebellion in this film, but I'll let you go through it because
the whole thing is you have to put things in the proper context. Blaxploitation films, we got all that stuff. Spike Lee, his objections to Quentin Tarantino's another slave film was Django Unchained.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people raised the same issues against that film initially because it was another slave film. Mm-hmm. A white man was producing it, and they jumped on Jamie Foxx. Oh, you playing a slave, man? What's up with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then Spike Lee saying, this thing is not going to honor my ancestors because slavery was no Sergio Leone spaghetti western. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and Jamie he's upset. He said, man, be cool. Let it come out. So the thing is, they're jumping, same thing on me, like I'm criticizing it, but all I'm saying is I'm looking at it from the context of cinema history. But the thing is this, in the context of the dominant culture, the beautiful thing about it is, yes, Nate Parker's input, and he's got to inject things where if it's subtle, covert, he's showing a black man saying enough's enough. We never had that. It was always, as I said before, the happy darky. But the technology is when people watch it, and what they're upset with is the fact that you did not get the bloody rebellion where some white baby is thrown against a wall. You didn't get the image you got in the foreign-made history of slavery with Farewell Uncle Tom. You didn't get that that image, that bloody image, or what we got in blaxploitation with Drum when these guys went buck wild, because those films were not aimed to be mainstream. You know, have you heard this where people say, well, I wonder just how much of Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation, just how revolutionary can it be when all these white folks are standing up cheering it at Sundance? And then after we did our review, which in many ways I knew I was conflicted, because you don't want to say too much. We had that restriction on us. You don't want to come out, and I certainly didn't want to say anything that was going to hurt it. So, you know, I had those things on me, but the whole thing is this. If you're working within the context of, as you say, the he who pays the piper calls the tune. Nate, where'd you get the money from? Nate, what is your consciousness? Because many people say, well, how racist or how bloody, how violent is the redress, the rebellion of Nat Turner going to be, where people start raising up issues of who Nate Parker is married to, okay? And I'll go into that whole politic. But the thing is, here is what people have to understand when I talk about it gets back to they don't want anything to come out that is subversive. If we look at how the film ends, the whole thing was betrayed by one of the slaves. And we see the same slave at the end where he's got a rifle, he's a soldier. He's going to fight as a soldier.
Yeah, it's a little boy, and then when they go into his eyes and they zoom out, and now he's a Union soldier, and he's followed by dozens of other soldiers. If you haven't seen the movie, too bad.
Okay.
You have plenty of time to see it.
Okay. So now, when we saw that, what title did you say to me when you saw that scene?
I don't know. I don't remember, man.
Glory.
Oh, Glory. Yeah. Okay.
Glory.
Okay.
So yes, Glory. Now, if you remember a scene in Glory, if you know the film Glory, it's what I'm talking about. If we're going to have blacks fighting for their freedom, the same way in Silverado I mentioned, the same way you're going to have blacks fighting for their freedom, they have Free State of Jones. It's okay on film if we show what?
It's done legally?
It's legally in the sense that it's being validated by whites. Okay? That's what Glory was. To show you, if we're going to show blacks rebelling, you have to have white validation.
Right. Well, I mean, that's definitely part of the political thing, but it's also a very legitimate commercial concern. that white folks are not going to support the film if they don't have a point of entry in terms of character to it. You know.
Of course, but the whole thing is they'll tell you, well, if it's going to make money, we don't care. That's bull. Mm-hmm. It's not about just money. Mm-hmm. Okay? The whole thing, first and foremost, is if it's politically correct.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, we can go back to last year, this time, another movie, all black cast, about black folks who empowered themselves came out, straight out of Compton. And, made $160 million. It was really one of the most successful black films in terms of black writer, or not black writer, but black producer, black director, black cast ever. But in the film, you had the Jewish manager, and it frustrated me that they would have to stop the movie 2 or 3 times to apologize and say, no, they're not anti-Semitic. It's like, yeah, damn right. Go listen to Ice Cube's first, album. He's like, let a Jew break up my crew. But they had to tone a lot of that stuff down in order to make the movie commercial. So I mean,
42.
Mm-hmm.
You get 42. Why?
Mm-hmm. Oh, because of Branch Rickey.
Branch Rickey.
Yeah.
Race.
Mm-hmm.
When we see the story of Jesse.
Yeah, the most developed character in Race is that of the track coach. More time is spent following Lena Riefenstahl than you actually have screen time of Jesse Owens. I would argue. I mean, I haven't done the math, but it's damn near even for a movie about Jesse Owens. He's literally 1/3 of the story.
Or even when and the other thing we had to correct was
Mau Mau's.
The Mau Mau's.
Yeah.
But even when they did the South, because I was thinking when I was thinking about the Mau Mau's, I was also thinking about the fact that you had Simba, the film Simba, mm-hmm. and Something of Value. Mm-hmm. So, but dealing with the Mau Mau's and Kenya. But the thing is, when they dealt with the issues over in South Africa, A World Apart, mm-hmm. It turns out to be more about the good white people and what they suffer trying to help the blacks.
Right. So, but I mean, so in closing, I would say that I still think that Birth of a Nation is a brilliant film. It's Oscar caliber. I mean, for a first-time writer-director who invested that amount of time to tell his story, I think that he got 90% of it. Like he got a chance to make the film he wanted to make. Now, I do understand that the version that we got to see in theaters differs slightly from the version that was originally shown at Sundance, and I would be really curious if anybody saw the earlier version, if they could make comment in terms of what was changed. But my understanding from inside sources, there was some extensive changes there. But for me, that film, along with Queen of Katwe, just reinforces like this 2016 is going to be one of those years where you look at it and say, okay, this is the emergence of seeing black heroes represented on film. We've had many of them, and we're going to talk in an upcoming segment about Luke Cage and some of the other things that have been going on. But for me, Birth of a Nation, what I like was the imagery that was reinforcing the idea that we all have a power within ourselves. Like this character of Nat Turner was born with certain gifts, but it took oppression and his education and his exposure to seeing how others were suffering for him to realize the power that he had within us. And I think that that's a message that we can all take, and it's really going to be important for people to use that as a touchstone. It's unfortunate that more people didn't get it. Everyone had the opportunity to see it, but because of the smoke screen, not enough people supported it in a way where it was really going to affect mass dialogue. And it might have been tough in this election year to get any kind of movement on that kind of discussion beyond. Well, the 13th is doing a great job of it, But it really needs to be a part of more people's dialogue, more people's vernacular to see Birth of a Nation.
Well, as I said in the first setting, I applaud Nate Parker when I first saw him, and you listen to him, you can see he's done a great deal of research. You know, the whole thing is the black technology is, you know, some people point out, Nat Turner did not turn himself in. Okay, so kudos to Nate for, you know, hey, I'll change it up. You know, who's to say I'm wrong? When they change history, when they whitewash Jesse James, I'll whitewash Nate Turner, because, you know, the same way they want to make Nate Turner out as someone other than what he was is the same way they want to do, as I said before, the same way they want to do. Who did Bobby Dick say he has some of the greatest respect for in the history of mankind?
John Brown.
John Brown. You know, John Brown was, I think he was white. Okay, but here's the thing. In Glory, there's a scene in Glory where Morgan Freeman tells Denzel Washington's character, "What's wrong with you, fool?" You remember that scene? You know, the war that cost more lives in the history of America is which war?
Civil War.
Civil War. So, you know, if I'm a white man and I don't like you because you black, I don't think I'm going to go fight another white man over you. Something to think about. And I may get in court. I'm quite sure I'll be called a coon for saying that. You know, but the thing is, as I said before, I'm not about saying something that makes somebody feel good. I'm about giving what I feel as an analysis that's informed, and I can stand by what I say. And I'm all about protest. I'm protest, which means I'm for testing what anybody says. You know, people want to talk about the sun people versus the ice people. Well, when I learned it was about the concrete people versus the abstract people. People are people. There's one comment I got where someone says, "Have you ever looked at the history of how blacks have killed blacks? People of color have killed their own kind? What do you think about that?" You know, and I said, you know what? Anytime any man, woman, or child wants to go into history and look at man's inhumanity to man, they'll see it crosses all color lines. People are people. And anytime you can say that a man, regardless of his color, can be either good or bad, it's got nothing to do with color, then you have no debate with me.
I understand, but I mean, that should be the last word. But I just want to clarify what the intentions of doing this, like exposing people to this information, is. I mean, I don't know if we're trying to dismantle the system as much as expose people to the way certain
the way
things
we're
work.
going to, here's the thing, the way we're going to dismantle this system, okay? We have to see the fact that the people who run this system are very small. And the way they're able to control this system and to perpetuate it as it is, it's through divide and conquer, okay? In the Balkans, in Africa, wherever you go, people are killing people. If it's not a color thing that they've made it here, it's a religious thing. It's a the Sunnis versus whoever they're against. It's a political thing. There's always going to be some difference, okay? But the thing is, if we can't see the commonality where we're all in this boat together, when they showed little black children and women having the holes blown, turned on them, dogs on them. If you didn't have people of all races say this is wrong, well, then a lot of what happened legally in terms of changing what happened as far as the race relations is concerned from a legal perspective, that we wouldn't have gotten those changes, you know?
And it wasn't a 5-year window. A lot of the things that were reversed theoretically, legally, through the Civil Rights Act, folks have been working on trying to make those changes for decades, if not almost a century. I mean, the Civil Rights Act, 1965, Emancipation Proclamation, 1865. You know, one of the things that, well, I won't go there. So, you know, folks can't just be of the moment. It can't just be of a hashtag. It has to be, you know, how do you work outside the system? I mean, you can choose to tune out, and a lot of people do. But if you want to affect change, you have to educate yourself. You have to find ways to be a part of your community and work to change things incrementally, not worry about what's going on in November, you know, but it's not the presidential campaign has way less to do with how things operate in these small towns. Who's the sheriff in Ferguson? Who's the mayor of Baltimore? You know, those are the races where those kind of things happen. I'm sure you know all this already. So, but it's not just because we're talking about it on YouTube that automatically something's going to change. But hopefully, my hope is that when people are exposed to this information that Charles is presenting, that they don't use the divide and conquer and block out some of the information, but take it all in, filter it out the way that you want to, and then apply it to things that you can do to make things different. I mean, the whole purpose of the channel, like the original motto of Reelblack TV was capturing the new black film revolution. The fact that we all have technology, I mean, this phone you could shoot a movie on, and people have done it. We all have the power to tell our own stories, but if we're programmed to just regurgitate the type of storytelling and the messages and modes that we've been getting up until now, we're all doomed because it's just going to stay the same. It's all about perpetuating the status quo.
We're going to talk in another segment about some of the more recent TV shows like Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm. All right, so.
But there's one line that Alfre Wood says in Luke Cage.
Okay, we'll save it.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and then you know, just keep posted. We'll have all these up in the next day or two.
The reason why Donald Trump is where he's at, if we relate it to film, I think there's some films people need to see that point to the danger of why Donald Trump is so important with his cult of personality.
What makes me mad is all the gangbangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the gangbangers that are supposed to be banging and shit. Okay, the cops are killing us. Why aren't you shooting at them for us? What happened, gangbangers? All of a sudden they at home and shit. Motherfuckers are at home. We're all these tough gangbangers. We need you. Hello? Hey, man, the Italians got mafia. Like the Italians, you know what I love about the mafia, the Italians? They protect their neighborhoods. They protect their neighborhoods. They protect their people. We're the only motherfuckers that have no mafia. Black people don't got a mafia. We can't even organize crime.